I've heard that this particular series of StarCraft 2 is amazing. I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two legends. First off, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the #1 player from the United States of America. We're looking at none other than Astrea's main Nexus. His opponent, though, the #1 player of all time, with the red Zerg pieces from Finland. We're looking at Serral's main hatchery. Serral apparently opening up with the 15 hatch. There's a little bit of variety these days when it comes to the different build orders and the different strategies that you can go for. Interestingly enough, as of about maybe 2 weeks or so ago, Zerg players figured out that the Extractor Trick Overlord is actually the superior way to start. So for, well, basically the entirety of Legacy of the Void, so since about 2015, every Zerg player under the sun has been opening up with a 13 supply Overlord, which is when you make your very first OV, but it turns out that apparently you get a couple of minerals of advantage if you decide to go for the Extractor Trick instead. I remember very fondly seeing a Team Liquid threat a very long time ago. This must have been 2015. I remember seeing the threat, somebody had run the numbers, and somebody determined that the most efficient way to open up is a 13 supply Overlord. And it turns out, we were wrong. Like, we've been wrong since 2015. Lambo recently figured out that if you do the Extractor Trick perfectly, it is actually superior, and it does mean that you can make your natural expansion ever so slightly quicker. Now, if you're a ladder hero, it probably doesn't matter all too much, but if you're really trying to optimize the first couple seconds of a game of StarCraft 2, apparently it is ever so slightly better. The thing is, if you go for the Extractor Trick, right, so you build the structure, make an extra drone, cancel the Extractor, if you mess it up in any way, shape, or form, you're pretty significantly behind compared to a 13 supply Overlord. But it is funny to see a little bit of variety once more creep into the game, especially for the first couple minutes. You would imagine that everything is perfectly figured out, but even after all these years, there's still bits of refinement for, well, not just Zerg, also for Protoss and for Terran. Now we're starting off on Abyssal Reef. This is a big map. And in my mind, Serral is near unbeatable in a macro game. I mean, obviously, this is the new multiplayer balance patch. It's quite difficult to really predict what a proper late game of PvZ looks like, and I know a lot of Zerg players are not too fond of playing late game right now, so it is curious to me that we're starting off on this map, and Astrea starts it with a Twilight Council build. Now, this is not really a macro-focused style. We've been seeing a lot of quick, well, for example, Tempest openers on this map. We've even seen like a Mothership rush, because she can get away with all of it. Astrea actually not rallying this correctly. He decides to go Blink first? Really? I'm almost thinking it's a fake. Blink first makes very little sense. So we see Blink first against Terran almost every single game. Are we gonna cancel and go Dark Shrine? No. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. There's a couple different options that you have off of a Twilight Council opener. Most commonly in 2024, it would be a Glaive Adept rush. And that is certainly something that Serral will be considering at this point in time. Astrea proxying a pylon on the other side of the map? It looks to me like he wants to go for a Blink all-in. Now the thing is, against the Glaive Adept push, Zerg has to limit the amount of drones that they make. So usually you stop somewhere in like the early 40s as far as the worker count goes. So Serral right now going Baneling Nest, okay. He wants to play Ling Bane against what he will probably consider to be a Glaive Adept push. He's scouting additional gateways here. Obviously, the Overlord at this point is gone. He hasn't seen the proxy up here. But... oh, is he going to see it? Oh, Serral, you're so freaking good. He's actually scouting everywhere. There's vision coming up all around the map, and he sees a proxy gate in the top section of the map. That's huge. The thing is, if you're going to play this off as a Glaive Adept opener, Zerg is going to start making Zerglings, which are also probably even better against Blink openers. So I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this strat is. Let the man cook though, because Astrea is known for very creative gameplay, but I've got a feeling that Serral is just going to be able to overwhelm this. I mean, Stalkers are pretty good. Protoss players have gotten a lot better at controlling them as well over the years, because of course this is the gold standard in the Protoss versus Terran matchup, so they play this all day, every day. But as long as you just make Zerglings and Queens, in my mind, you're gonna be fine. Oh my god, well, here we go. Blink is done, so at least they're gonna be able to escape to an area that doesn't have as much surface area, but if the Zerglings get a wraparound, these units are super dead. Yeah, and this is already falling flat on its face. Keep in mind that Serral is behind worker-wise at this point in time. I don't know if he really should chase this down and, yeah, engage in that choke point, but if he gets a wraparound with some of these units, he's gonna be in a really nice spot. Blink does, of course, have a relatively short cooldown, but you can't be using it all of the time. Alright, Astrea. This honestly speaks more to Serral than to Astrea, because this is the image that Serral always has. Nobody wants to be playing Macro against him. He's considered to be a monster defensively as well, though, in the earlier stages of a game. And even though this is something very uncommon, it's doing nothing. It's not over yet. It looks to me like he wants to go for a third Nexus on the back of this. Economically, Astrea is fine, but I think he needs to back out of this. Because it's not, like, there's no way. If you're gonna fight this on creep, Serral's still spreading it too. The queens can join in. Even slow roaches are gonna have an easy time. There's about 0% chance that anything is going to work. Serral even prepared a Spore Crawler in case this would have been a Dark Templar follow-up. He's going for the Zergling counterattack. Trying to see if he can get into the natural. No third Nexus yet. I think he'll be quite happy about it. Serral actually playing this very conservatively. Not really adding on too many workers. Not adding on too much tech. Here we go. Astrea is committed to this push. He's basically just gone for a 6-gate Stalker all-in against Zerg. Maybe against Terran, man. There's a good reason why we don't normally do this. The Stalker attack speed is just not fast enough to deal with this sort of thing. That's why the Glaive to Depths are so good, but you do a lot of over damage, right? Like the Stalkers will shoot at a Zergling that's like 1 HP. I mean, this is actually not even looking terrible. If he actually wins with this, I'm gonna lose my mind. Nah, it's a cute attempt. And it's certainly not something Serral has practiced against recently, but he shuts it down with relative ease. Alrighty, next up, we find ourselves on Ley Lines. The thing that really strikes me as odd, though, is that this seemed a response to Astrea getting scouted. So, to sell a story that you're going for Glaive to Depths, maybe Glaive to Depth into Dark Templar or something along those lines, which is gonna trigger, I guess, either Roach or Zergling production. Maybe if Serral decided to go for quick Roaches, the Stalkers would have worked out quite a bit better. But he could always just switch into Zerglings a little bit later on. I'm not exactly sure what the plan was there. It kind of felt to me that that was not the scheduled approach that Astrea meant to go for, but he suddenly found himself building a gateway on the other side of the map, and he tried to make the best of it. I think if he would have retreated actually at a certain point and just made a third Nexus, it would have been fine. Not great, but it would have at the very least been playable. Doubling down with that push, it really wasn't gonna go anywhere in the first place, but... Anyways, now we find ourselves on Ley Lines. I've actually seen Protoss be quite successful in PvZ on Abyssal Reef. I'm not exactly sure if it's considered to be a good Protoss map overall. I can have a quick little look at the Wikipedia stats. So that's the map we were just on. The thing is, this map was also around in, like, the early days of StarCraft 2, right? With the early Legacy of the Void, so... actually, Wikipedia does separate the different timelines. So in 2024, which is the year we are in right now, Zerg has a win rate of 47% against Protoss on Abyssal Reef. So it is... Okay, well, it is a slight advantage for Protoss across the board when it comes to tournament play. So it keeps track of all of the tournament games that are being played. And you can draw some conclusions off of it. I think a lot of that, though, is the early Tempest builds, when Zerg players hadn't seen those strategies before. I think a lot of them were caught off guard against that sort of thing, so... Anyways, it's a nice map overall for Protoss. I don't think it's a bad map for Protoss. So the fact that Astrea decided to go for something that wonky, like maybe on a map that's just awful for Protoss against Zerg, that's something you can mix in. May as well give it a shot. But, yeah. Anyway, Stargate this time around, and... I like seeing the Stargate builds. It is by far the best choice. Twilight Council and Robo play, it's technically viable, but it's just not nearly as good as the Stargate start. Serral going for a triple hedge build, going into Link speed. I'm talking a lot about the Protoss strategy so far because, well, Serral does the most stock standard stuff. If you want to learn how to play proper Zerg early game, just look at Serral's games and try to mimic it to the best of your abilities. That's basically, like, this is as stock standard as it comes. Obviously, he's the one effectively inventing the modern stock standard. But this is like the vanilla ice cream of StarCraft 2. You know what I mean? Like, everybody loves vanilla ice cream. It's great. But we don't really need to discuss vanilla ice cream that much. Everybody knows that it's gonna be good. Well, there will be one guy who hates vanilla ice. I don't know what to make of you, man. If you hate vanilla ice cream, everybody loves vanilla ice cream. That's like saying, I hate chocolate. How? First off, why? Secondly, maybe you have an allergy. Maybe you're allergic to Zerg. Well, it could be. Anyways, let's see how much damage those Gleifed Adepts can do. Okay, so this is gonna be the quote-unquote trick this time around. Oh, maybe not. No, he was just waiting for the energy recharge. Okay. Apparently just didn't have enough energy on the Nexus. I thought we were gonna save up a second Oracle and then come zapping out on the other side of the map. So this is very much so Protoss skill expression. You need to be good at this Oracle control because otherwise you fall horribly behind. Really? We're gonna just... Oh, so much respect here coming out of Astrea. The fact that he is settling for 2 creep tumor snipes and he's not even attempting killing drones? I mean, that does not bode a whole lot for this match, right? I want to be excited about this sort of thing. I mean, either it's like super confidence that you don't need to get ahead in any other way, but generally speaking, Protoss players will be aiming for worker damage in the Zerg's mineral line. Because if you kill absolutely nothing, Serral's gonna get pretty far ahead. Second Adept is now here though, and that means, or Oracle rather is here, so that means you can start shooting them at a time and get some worker in. Yeah, not bad. So 3 workers just like that. Ovi has already gone down 2. Ideally, you want to aim for about 2 digits worth of workers, right? Like 10 workers or so is really good. 8 or so is decent. 3 is not enough. It's gonna be Blink again on the back of this together with a Forge. The tricky part, of course, by the way, on that Oracle harassment is that you need to keep the Oracles alive really badly. Losing the Oracles is just a recipe for disaster. And it's a recipe that doesn't even give you Barrow's gloves at the end of it. So what's even the point? Can I make RuneScape jokes? I don't know. The thing is, the stasis wards are so nice. Not just for aggression, like what Astrea is doing over here, but also for defense a little bit later on. He's on 4 gateways. There's no prism or anything along those lines yet. I think he's really just trying to destroy creep. Curious. So we're really just settling on creep damage for the most part. It's also, by the way, a double Oracle opener, rather than the more conventional triple Oracle start. Although this is not entirely uncommon. Serral, in the meantime, going +1 melee right now. Relatively late +1 melee. We've got ourselves an Infestation Pit as well. That one then in response is relatively early. Roach Speed coming up. I don't believe we have a Baneling Nest, so it's probably just going to be a stepping stone here. I would imagine it's going to be a lot of Zerglings for the time being, and then... Well, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could go Ultras, but Serral doesn't really strike me as an Ultralist guy. Ultras perform well in very specific scenarios, but across the board, in the StarCraft 2 spreadsheet that Serral likes to play, it's just not a good build. Hive coming up right now. Hydra Den into Lurker Den is going to be the much more likely option. So Adrenal Glands on Zerglings together with +1 or +2 is still really good. He can always go for a second Evolution Chamber as well in a little bit. In the meantime, +1 is coming up. And this is a very straight up game here from Astrea. So the previous game he decided to play a bit of a Trixie style. This particular strategy he's going for here is as good as it's going to be. So most of the time, the way that this works currently for Protoss is to survive in the mid game and then win in the late game. That seems to be the general gist of this matchup right now, even at the professional level. So Zerg players like to go for like an endless mid game, where they keep on throwing like Hydra Ling Bane, or for example, Roach Ravager Ling Bane, or anything Ling Bane based, really. The thing is, Serral is usually not afraid to play late game. So, we'll have to see how this plays out. He's going straight into lurkers here. These are pretty quick. He could go for lurker drops if he wants to. He could go for night display as well. But generally speaking, if Protoss manages to at least have a decent economy and something that's relatively similar to that of the Zerg, he's gonna be able to build up a stronger army than the Zerg can build. Obviously, the advantage for Zerg is that you can usually remax really quickly. So if you can build a big economy, he can throw effectively 2 armies at 1 army of the Protoss, because the Protoss army takes forever to build. Now, we do have a couple of charge slots here together with Storm. 4 of those High Templar hanging out. We have a large group of Zealots as well up north that at this point has been unscouted. Okay, Stasis Ward over there. I mean, he's either going to strike over on the left side. Okay, this hatchery is dead. Yep, nicely done by Astrea. The classic 1-2 punch. I think we go home. I think you... Oh, really? This seems a bit... No. Yeah, just go home. I think you kind of have to take the small advantages when you can... Yeah, when you can get them. He's reaching for the stars now, but it's... running into the natural expansion is a bit too ambitious for me. Okay, Immortal production has begun. We don't yet have a transition towards a Stargate or a Fleet Beacon. Well, there it is. Fleet Beacon goes down. I was going to say, it is about time we make that move. Fleet Beacon, by the way, but no additional Stargate. So this could just be for a Mama ship. Not bad. Photon cannons coming up. Spire is building in the meantime on the other side of the map. Of course, the main advantage these days is that the Mama ship is just... A, way more powerful. It just deals a ton of damage. It's very common these days for a mothership to get like 20 kills all in the zone. And B, it can't be abducted anymore. So Vipers are not just a one-size-fits-all. Lurkers are burrowed over here. Astrea doesn't actually want to fight. He's just trying to get some value here. He's making it look like he wants to fight, but ultimately, of course, fighting can also be the best defense. By being on the other side of the map, he's effectively forcing the Zerg army to stay home. Serral right now realizes it. He notices that this is not a Protoss player that actually wants to stick around on a Groundtools army, as additional Stargates right now are coming. The Mama ship, besides those other 2 things though, can also, well, cost you a little bit more. It's now 400 minerals, 400 gas again, and it's a little bit bigger. It's also 2 more supply, so Astrea actually currently can't build it. What he can do is start some of those late game upgrades. So this is the Tectonic Destabilizers. It's the Tempest upgrade that allows you to deal some additional damage to structures. This should be an easy kill. If he decides to move in, he's a little distracted. Good storms over here, though. Yep. Nice defense by Astrea, gets the job done. He's now expanding in the direction of the Zerg. That's always a bit risky. Greater Spire coming up for Serral. He is going to settle on killing that base here eventually, moving back up towards the high ground. You know what? This little hit squad that's been camping out on the map, this is one of those new things that Protoss players have been doing. Since there's really no advantage sitting at home close to like a shield battery ready to like overcharge it, Protoss has been parking their army a lot more out on the map. And it's creating a lot of pressure. Like, Serral has been looking for a new expansion for a little while. He's going to take the base over here in the bottom right-hand corner. Fair enough. Prism tried to fly in, but the Corruptors did catch it. Yeah, just having your army out on the map, knowing that Zerg can't really fight you off creep, especially not with Lurkers. Like, Lurkers need to burrow, and then they can obviously fight, so you can't really, like, charge at an army particularly well. This is not bad. Yeah, Astrea playing an excellent game so far. Gets the drone over here, leaves an Adept behind too in case another worker goes in. Okay, I was a little nervous after that first game, because honestly, that was pretty terrible from Astrea. Not really the type of style we want to see. I was a little nervous that he was just not comfortable at all playing against Serral, but now he's going toe-to-toe and he's doing great. Mothership is coming up, triple Tempest on the back of this, +2 air weapons. Well, it's contaminated now by that Overseer, but Serral already realized what's happening. When that's upgrading, you know what's up. Couple Zealots trying their best. Couple of Stormy Boys a little overextended. This is a bit sloppy. Can morph them into an Archon, but apparently we're just going to settle for death. Okay. Now, I'm very curious to see what Serral does in the late game, because I'll be honest, Every game that I've seen from this position seems to result in a Protoss win, even at the pro level. In Diamond League, probably about 98% of these games from this position result in a Protoss win. But even at the pro level, I want to say like maybe 70% or so of the games, Protoss seems to win from this spot now. Which is very different compared to where it was a year or so ago. Corruptor count is not big enough. There's 12 of them at this point. Obviously, it's still very complex to play this out. But Zerg players have effectively become allergic at using spellcasters now. They seem to be under the assumption at least that Vipers and Infestors are just not really worth it. Infestors can kind of be mixed in a bit later when you're about to run out of resources. I think one or so Viper is still good. Like, Parasitic Bomb is still good supplemental damage. But it's hard to control, right? Like, they're not an easy unit to go around. Zerg seems to be settling on using Nidus Worms and whatnot instead. Like Overlord drops. Rather than playing a spellcaster-focused approach. So, apparently Serral now also doing exactly that. He needs high ground vision, though, in order to try and harass this base. Static defense is being set up. Nidus Worm over here, too, to quickly transport these troops. Serral doesn't have the Corruptor count. He can't really fight these Tempests at this point. Where's the Mama ship? Oh, she's just chilling. Okay. Mama's taking a little nap up north. Set up over here to deal with any Zerg run-bys. Okay. So far, expertly played by Astrea. Haven't really found any faults in his play, other than maybe those High Templar overextending and we're being a little overly ambitious. But I mean, mistakes are always going to be made in a game of StarCraft. It happens. Observer, if you get close by... Ooh, hello. Mama! Mama didn't wake up from her nap. Can we recall her? Well, okay. That was what we call a Protoss move. Yeah. Lucky for him, though, the Corruptors were sent on a beeline straight back towards the natural. So he gets a couple of Corruptors, too, in retaliation. The mothership was, yeah, she was in charge of defending and she decided to be aggressive. She woke up from her nap and she decided, you know what? A little bit of violence today would be nice. Oh, God, a Mama ship makes this particular army, though, so much better. Serral is on the prowl. He's trying to chase this army with Lurkers and with Corruptors. The rest of the ground army has already disappeared, but lucky for the Zerg, he decides to disengage right before one of those Archons got another hit in. Mama ship or not, though, turns out that this Protoss army is still capable of holding its own. There's also a fight happening up north. Astrea pushing that squad of Zerg back as well. +1 armor coming up. We should really fire up the +3 air attacks. Actually very important to keep those upgrades going. Now we have a transition towards Broodlord and Fester. Queen's coming up too. Serral, by the way, with the smaller bank. Okay. Well, this is another kill on a base. Lovely play here from Astrea. So you can kind of fuel this army here for Zerg, right? Just not be as effective anymore. Like, you're looking at these units, and then, like, none of them really inspire confidence. The Lurker is nice and all, but it needs to be set up in position in advance to where the Protoss is going to be. Like, you can't really go chasing anything. And this entire Zerg ball just doesn't look that scary to me. Astrea is just going around right now, bullying hatcheries. He's killed a lot of them so far. A little bit of a fight over here up north as well. 5 hatcheries have died. Look at the cost efficiency. Yeah, and this is reminding me quite a bit of the Zerg versus Terran matchup now too, where we've been seeing extreme cost effectiveness from Terran, especially in the later stages of the game. It seems like Zerg are struggling in much the same way here in this matchup now too. It's funny because they always had the best late game. Here we go though, big fungal growth. Serral coming in clutch, trying to see if he can grab a couple of those, well, units up in the air. He's targeting down one of the Tempests at a time. Archons though deal enough splash damage to ultimately get that army to back off. 2 Infestors ended up going down, the rest of them decided to retreat. There were only 5 of them in total though. Okay. You gotta be careful here. So I guess the idea is to make a lot of Broodlords, to kind of like keep these Archons and Immortals and High Templar and everything pinned back, and then allow the Corruptors to swoop in and kill everything else. And then some Infestors for even Neural Parasites, for example, could be awesome. It's just that this army is so freaking slow, man. Yeah. Normally the Zerg is very mobile. Every Zerg unit is quite mobile, but the Brute Lords just... Well, they flew on over here when that base got first, attacked, but the Tempest already killed it before the Brute even got remotely close. Some leftover units here as well at the bottom of the map, still denying another base. And Astrea, with some excellent movement here, is essentially fulfilling what has always been the role of the Zerg in this matchup. Like, he's keeping the Zerg player self-contained. He's saying, yo, you can have this many bases, but no more. In the meantime, he's gobbling up all of the resources on his side of the map. Additional gateways coming up, Dark Shrine is building, the Stepmother ship is coming up, we have double upgrades here, researching as well, and 2 cyber cores. Like, he is prepared to play an ultimate late game, and Serral seems to be chasing after the facts right now. Let's see though, we're only one good fight away from, well, a Zerg advantage. Serral trying his best, he's playing well. Look at his bank though, look at the money right now available for Astrea. This is an obvious base that he should still acquire. It's a massive map. A lot of expansion, so I guess this base still should be his, and then this one over here. Obviously at this point, he doesn't really have a need for those new mineral fields yet. Corruptors, trying to get close. Whew. He's just bleeding out so many of those units. 16 of them have gone down. 2 Tempest, so that's a really nice trade here again for Astrea, as he kills another one of the Zerg bases. So essentially Astrea's game plan here is to bleed the Zerg out. He's not really planning on taking one big fight as a full bulldozer against like a big Zerg army. That's not his goal. He's trying to make sure that Zerg is gonna suffocate. He's trying to make sure here that you can't really do much. If Serral is gonna run out of money, obviously these well, earlier bases that he took, this one is still okay, I guess, but the third is already running very low. Give this Zerg player another 10 minutes or so, and he's gonna be flat broke. Keep in mind that the High Templar is still a phenomenal tool against those Zerg spellcasters. So I think one of the reasons Serral is not going for any sort of Viper play here is because he can just get feedback. Protoss players have gotten a lot better at that sort of thing over the years. And it's not like Serral really has that much money, although I do think adding in like 1 or 2 Vipers here is a nice idea. It's just one of those situations where this is like already like a 3 control group army for the Zerg. If you add in the Queens, it would be a 4th. If you add in a Viper as well, or a couple of Vipers, it would be a 5th control group, right? Like, there's a lot of movement already. This is not an easy Protoss army to control either, though, by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly a lot more forgiving. So, I think, yeah, that's one of the reasons why the Viper, like, in theory, the Viper is a great idea. It's just really difficult to pull off. But it would be the obvious thing to make the Zerg army slightly more powerful. At least you would be able to punish mistakes from the Protoss player, where right now, I feel like the main thing Serral is looking for is the entire Protoss army being AFK, right? If the entire Protoss army is sleeping on the job. But Astrea is just not making any mistakes here. Other than the mothership sleeping a little bit, right? Waking up from the nap and choosing violence, and then she died. Oh my lord. Okay, dude, that one Archon got so much damage on. The Storm also doing well. Ultimately, Serral, though, does grab a nice set of units, and in the meantime, we also had a counterattack. 18 probes have gone down. Wait, I say that. Hold up. Did the probes really die in the bottom right-hand corner? Okay, yeah. Because this seemed like a very early transfer, since the base was only just now made. I was thinking maybe Astrea was killing his own workers, because at this point you don't actually want that many probes anymore. You'd rather have that 18 supply right now caught up in additional army instead. So that's exactly what Astrea does, and this is the right play for sure. Add on more units. Yeah, even though Serral killed all those probes, I think Astrea is saying thank you very much. Don't really care. Keep in mind that Astrea also has a massive bank. I think this is a bit too much money in the bank. The gas is nice, but since photon cannons and shield batteries only cost minerals. He should really be sprinkling more of those around. He could just build up a whole load over here and then make the Nexus. He doesn't really need to be... Yeah, he's not really... He's adding on more right now. I don't mind this at all. The gas is the limiting resource here. Yeah, maybe a 2-to-1 ratio of minerals to gas is okay. But he could drop a little bit lower. Like, worst case scenario, if you don't have enough minerals, you make more Archons, right? Like, Archons are pretty good. Serral's making 14 more drones, 15, 16 more drones. I think he's probably planning on transferring some of them towards the bottom of the map and then maybe morph the rest of it into a bunch of Spore Crawlers. Something like that. One hero, Dark Templar, just trying to keep this Zerg player occupied. It's more or less an APM limitation right now. Considering Serral's playing at nearly 500 average actions per minute here. He's still busy putting out fires, but he's bleeding out. Serral's bleeding out. I don't know what the win condition is at this point for Serral. I'm not sure what the win condition has been from Serral. The entire win condition, in my mind, has been crossing your fingers and hoping Astrea makes a mistake. And since Astrea is not making any mistakes, in my mind, this can only really lead to a Protoss victory. The Protoss army is going to the bottom, trying his best to see if he can keep this Zerg player, well, once more occupied over there. At least this expansion has been mining for a little while now, so Serral's getting some money over there. But... oh no! Oh, that is not something Serral can afford. Serral the one making a mistake instead. Losing a handful of his infestors. That was still not that bad, I guess. Could have been a lot worse. Here's the Mama ship. She decides to go in with a big recall. The entirety of the Protoss army gets transported. This is one of those abilities, man. The sky is the limit. You can obviously also recall back to a Nexus on the other side of the map. Turns out the stepmother is better than the original. Yeah. Who would have guessed? Broodlord Infestor. I mean, this used to be the Zerg safety blanket for a long time. It used to be what Zerg players, well, would ultimately go for in the late game. As we do have a fight over here, but, I mean, unless Serral gets the entire Protoss army neuraled or something along those lines, I just don't see this Zerg army winning. And there's not really enough Infestors for that right now. Yeah. I mean, it's not over yet. And I don't want to be anticlimactic. But the analytical caster in me is saying that this is a near unlosable game right now. I mean, you still need to execute. And this might just be the opportunity that Serral is looking for. Serral is still obviously absolutely lethal. But as long as Astrea plays this intelligently, like, for example, spend your 40 supply. He doesn't need to spend his 40 supply. Serral, he does not want to play this out. He's forced to tap out. GG. And that means that this series comes down to Amygdala. Our final map in this best of 3 series. Amygdala, of course, the map with the 2 attack lanes. A very predictable layout across the board. So generally I would be favoring this for Serral. But it's pretty clear that maybe you shouldn't be playing late game that much. This is... honestly, the previous game is an excellent example as to why basically every Zerg player that we see right now is going for that endless mid game. Serral playing a relatively ordinary approach, at least the ordinary approach that we've seen over the last couple of years. And I feel like he was just... like, when your win condition is the opponent making a gigantic blunder, right? Like, that's not a good way to play. I mean, it might be your only option at some point, but if from the outset your main goal is to cross your fingers and hope the opponent makes a mistake, I mean, that's not a strong... And Serral, I think, has always been able to out-control and out-macro. But in this patch, I just don't believe that it's the best choice. Like, yeah, he could mix in a couple Vipers, but other than that, I don't really see what he could have done differently. Maybe on Ley Lines, right? Maybe it's just that Ley Lines is not a good map for that sort of style, because Astrea was just bullying those bases. Playing Nidus, or not Nidus, playing Hatchery Whack-A-Mole, right? Every time a new hatchery popped up, he just went there with his army and he smacked it in the face. Astrea played that out as good as it was going to be. Maybe also a bit of a wake-up call right there, though, for Serral, because I think maybe he kind of figured he could strong-arm Astrea, especially after that first game, right? I mean, that was a 2-base 6 gates Stalker all in. Right? Like, that did not spark confidence in me at all, and I think Serral was also looking at that. Look at this guy, right? Like, he's thinking, yo, look at this guy. He does not even know what a normal build order against Zerg is. I'll just play my stock standard. And it's like Astrea suddenly revealed his final form, right? Like, that first game of the series, it's almost like he was feigning weakness. And now he decided, you know what? This is what we're going to do instead. All right, so what do we do here on Amygdala? I would imagine you try to do the exact same thing, Astrea. I feel like you don't have to get too crazy. You don't have to be too fancy. Maybe a triple oracle rather than a double oracle, but honestly, just play something very similar. Now, this is a double gate start. So double gateway into a delayed cybercore. It's not a very common strat. Serral already sending Lings in. This is really not the time to go Zerglings. So, this is more or less a build order that we would see back in the day. Oh, that's the idea. So Amygdala is the only map that only has 2 attack paths. Yeah, he's purposely sending them around. Lucky though for these Lings, or for the Protoss player, I guess. The Zerglings, well, are gonna be stopped. Did he... Am I crazy? Did he kill his own probe? Did he, like, was this like a Dota move right here? Was he trying to deny XP? That's not a thing in this game, Astrea, but... Did I just miss-see? No, it must have been the Zergling. No! He's denying in StarCraft 2, dude! I know this is a map that kind of looks like a MOBA. There's no central lane, I guess. At least you can't have that one, you know, that one teammate who's like, mid or AFK. Like, at least you can't have that guy. Because there is no middle lane. I mean, maybe when you knock down the rocks, or if you mine out the golden mineral fields, then at some point you can get a middle lane. But curious play right there from Astrea. In the meantime, he's going for a proxy gateway once more. Okay. Keep in mind that Astrea is, of course, a player who grew up on the North American server. He was molded by the American server. So, you know, you can't take that out of a man. The previous game was a very... I want to call it like a European-esque style. It's something that like Showtime would go for, or like maybe MaxSpecs would go for, or maybe Clem's Protoss would go for something like that as well. But Astrea, yeah, he grew up in, well, he's from California, right? So this, this is what he likes to do. I just find this, I don't think it's the right play, man. Like, Serral is so strong in just not losing. That's basically Serral's approach in the entirety of the previous game, right? Like, he was trying to not die, and then ultimately he died. But he didn't die until, like, minute 30. This is basically an adept push, but it's a very strangely timed one, because there is no glaives. There's no Twilight Council. Man, this is an NA server build and a half. Let's see, does it work? Oh, Serral going for the wall off. Yeah, there's no way in. Still though, the worker count obviously not bad. Astrea did build a third base on the back of this. We have a couple adepts over here as well at the third, but Serral already evacuated the drones. Couple of the adepts do sneak in now. Serral decides to cancel the wall so he could get more surface area. Ooh. I don't think you want to be cheesing Serral. I just... Like, if there's one Zerg player you don't want to cheese, I think it's Serral. This is the kind of stuff you could maybe catch others off guard with, but it just seems a bit silly. Now, ultimately, I mean, it's like they were just pawing at each other a little bit, right? Like, not much has actually happened. Maybe now some units will end up going down, but it's been... Yeah. This is like the beginning of a boxing match, you know? But it's like two guys that respect each other a lot, and rather than going ham right from the very start, they're just throwing very light punches. That's kind of what's going on here. Question is, though, will we be able to continue playing this game when the dust settles? Okay. Astrea actually does find himself with a worker lead now. This is the strangest way to obtain a lurker lead, or a lurker lead. Well, that would be very strange indeed in a Protoss player for sure, but A worker lead, this is a strange way of getting there. But he does have 3 bases now fully saturated. And I do kind of like the end result. I don't know if I enjoyed the journey very much, but the destination is good. We have the Robo facility coming up. Forge on the back of this. Very late Forge, by the way, at least relative to the Twilight Council. Normally those are right around the same time. Serral going what seems to be a Ravager Ling Bane this game. There is an Infestation Pit. But this looks more like that endless mid game that we've seen so many Zerg players employ as of late in this matchup. They just don't want to play late game. And this seems more like it. It's probably just Hive for example, Adrenal Glands. But first off, this attack will need to be held. I think, though, that Zerg is going to be okay here. There's still a fight on creep. These tumors are not dealt with. Obviously, there's no oracles in this particular game, right? Because this has been a Stargate-less start. So, yeah, the Observer is going to be a good weapon of choice here to get some detection, to kill those creep tumors. But Serral is getting a lot of value out of this. The Hedge, though, is taking a lot of damage. Hive is coming up. There is already a new base where these drones could continue mining. So trying to see if we can get the wraparound. One Stalker running low. That one ended up going down. I don't think Zerg can really chase. Nah. +1/+1, though, is finishing up. These are really quick upgrades. Especially if you compare it to the previous game. Bailing speed on the back of this, too. So I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope you don't pay attention strategy, where you blow up your opponent's mineral line, is certainly still an option. Are we gonna add on workers? Yes. I love this choice, though, from Astrea. Astrea going into a bunch of Colossi right now. I think Colossi is excellent. It's a great choice, especially against a Ling Bane-based army. It's just something that doesn't have a lot of value against, for example, Roach Ravager. Like, Roach Ravager straight up. Like, Colossi just don't deal enough damage. But still nice to have a couple in the mix just to force a little bit of that Roach Ravager style out. You can always follow it up with more of your other ground units. Even Immortals are, of course, a great choice. We don't see a whole lot of Disruptors against Zerg, but technically also a choice, I guess, that you can go for. Hatchery's going to... Oh, yeah. He does kill it in the end. Already, though, a new hatchery was building. And, of course, we did have this mineral line right over here, too. Now it's up to Serral to try and see if he can get some sort of damage done on the other side of the map. He's already adding on Vipers. The Vipers are going to be really good at abducting Colossi. So it's funny how we haven't seen any Vipers in the Skytools game. But now we do see Vipers. Adrenal Glands is also quite quick. Okay. Astrea has cleaned out this section of the map. Zealot run by up north. Little overly ambitious. Prism also is going to get pushed back by the Queens. Colossi, though, still joining in. I'm a little afraid that we're going to see them getting abducted. He must have seen one of the Vipers by now. That's also probably what these Queens are waiting for, so they can abduct the Prism. Templar Archives only just now coming up. Extended Thermal Lens coming up right now, too. Oh. He's trying to drop off some of these Zealots. Fight over here looking pretty good, though. Astrea trying to fight this base from the back. Forced to lift up once more. The Vipers are here. The Vipers are here. Gets a Stalker. Gets a Colossus with the second one. No Templar, of course, so no way to really feedback any of this. Colossi do tiptoe away. The rest of the Protoss army, though, is taking a lot of damage. But nice concave right here by Astrea. Vipers need to make sure they get some additional energy again. Serral retakes the base over here. Sonic Storm coming up. 8 High Templar, 2 Immortals. Yeah, great stuff here from Astrea. Let's forget about the first game in the series, man. That one was just straight up garbage compared to game number 2 and 3 so far. Can't believe this series started off with a 6-gate, 2-base Blink Stalker all-in against Zerg. What even happened? I have no idea. Anyways, is Brenda stuck? No. She's no longer stuck. Maybe she, like, pooped herself into a corner. But now that the creep tumor has disappeared into the ground, yep, Brenda is free. Here we go again. We need to see some feedbacks. Without feedbacks, oh my god, there's no Storm yet. Storm is a couple seconds away from finishing. There's the feedbacks going down. But all of the Templar, -1. Well, there he goes down too. Has already disappeared. 9 probes. Okay. Not terrible. 1 Viper ended up going down during all of that. Zealots moving in up north. Serral not quite prepared, but here's some of these units coming in, so he predicted this army movement. Rest of the Protoss army now moving on the right side of the map. Astrea really doesn't need to be this aggressive. I think he can just sit on his 4th base for a little bit longer and just macro up a maxed out army. I don't think he needs to be out here, to be honest. Like, he's secured himself a nice eco lead. There's really no reason for him to try and fight the maxed out Zerg army with anything less than maxed himself. Like, it's only gonna take like 2 warpins. It's not gonna be that long. He's remaking another base right now, but that one's not going to happen. This Protoss army kind of exposed. Bailing's trying to come in from the side. High Templar do get some really lovely storms down, though. Whew, great movement. Gateway up there gets spotted. All army hotkey has once more pulled the unit out of hold position in the mineral line. Astrea, lucky for him, had some supply available to warp in the main base. Gateways that were also not on cooldown. Now suddenly, though, the Zerg army on the right side is smelling blood. The entirety of the Protoss army needs to scramble on over towards this section of the map too to try and save this mineral line. Maybe pull the probes away? I think we pull the probes away, man. We need to get the safety of this army back. Oh no, now he's losing a lot of probes. Dude, don't tell me the series is gonna end because of an all army hotkey. Oh no, here we go again. More panic. You can tell that Astrea, yeah, his blood pressure has gone up. He's not quite fighting this as well as he was previously anymore. You make one mistake and Serral will grab it with both hands. 19 probes down the drain, but it's not like he's got that much economy of his own. Serral only at 59 workers. Still a significant supply advantage. Still no reason for Astrea to be out here. I think he should chill. There's no way he's gonna snipe a base right now. Another good storm. Good feedback as well, but these High Templar, a little exposed. Not enough energy for another storm. He doesn't need to be out there, man. We do have a Zergling run by over here too at the bottom, sniping more of these probes. Banelings are, well, just passing by as the rest of the Zerg army is sniping as many Immortals and Colossi as they can. Somehow, some way, Protoss actually wins this fight. Didn't think that was gonna go all too well, but the question is, at what cost? That is 18 additional workers going down. Astrea still fine, though, as far as the worker count goes. He's still at 62 workers. Serral's worker count has not been great. He's killed 49 of those bad boys on the other side of the map, but he's still behind. Look, Astrea just needs to chill for a moment. He's gonna go again. We should just breathe. Breathe for a little bit. Let those High Templar accumulate some energy. Maybe make a shield battery, a photon cannon or 2. Another Zergling run by over here, though. We do need to... Oh, no. Oh, no. No. Bro, all this technology and Protoss never invented doors. Isn't that insane? Imagine if Protoss was the race that had supply depots and they could just go up and down and they could just all army hotkey to their heart's content. Oh, no cancel on the Nexus. Zergling run by over here kills an additional 9 probes. I think Astrea is reading this as a game where Zerg has 85 drones. I think he's looking at this Zerg army because it seems to be never ending. I think he's reading this as a Zerg army that is maxed out and has like thousands of resources in the bank. So he's feeling like he needs to do something and needs to do something fast. The reality is that that hasn't been the case. Oh my god, here we go again. Okay, Serral decides to back off. This little hole in the map being his saving grace. Burrowed Zergling over here. At least there's a Zealot on hold position this time around, so at least it's not going to be that easy to snipe. Okay. At some point, your only choice is to relax, right? Like, at some point, your only choices are to either GG or to relax. If this is a major misread here from Astrea, like, I think what he needs to do is just sit and make a maxed out army and then go. I mean, now Serral has got a decent amount of stuff, but it's not like he's that rich. He doesn't have, like, that many great upgrades. He doesn't have tech. It's a Hive, sure, but that's about it. Just good old Archon Immortal Zealot Storm is not a bad choice. Astrea, though, I think he's misreading this, decides to go once more. Maybe just a little field trip out here, try to harass this gold base from the back. But just don't go too deep onto creep. It's a dangerous move. Circling run by, once more, thinking about getting some work done. Some nice storms over here. Oh, that's the end of the High Templar drops. Hatchery does fall, though. Astrea doesn't have an easy way to reinforce this. Serral's army is actually relatively mediocre, but this group of Zerglings has killed another mineral line. Now the worker count is starting to look pretty dire here for Protoss, who's remaking it, which is a little bit confusing too, because you don't want to be remaking here if you're effectively all in. At least that's the vibe I'm getting here from Astrea, who's going to move deeper onto creep. High Templar a little bit too exposed. Zerg trying to see if it can move in. Can we get some feedbacks? Looks like it's not necessary, at least on the first one. Banelings, though, starting to roll through everything. They can, of course, not deal that much damage to Archons, but they kill everything else instead. And I think this is enough Roach Ravager to finish the job. Whew! Serral obtains the victory over Astrea, 2-1. But honestly, I have not seen the man struggle in Zerg versus Protoss pretty much ever. And he really had to fight for this victory. I think this is a predicted result. Like, going into this series, I think most people would say, yeah, 2-1 or maybe 2-0 for Serral. But it's clear that he really had to fight for it. Heads off to Astrea. Well done.